Well, the Washington Post, one of the country's most influential newspapers, basically casting Donald Trump as a threat to our freedom and our form of government. The headline in the Washington Post editorial says this, quote, "To defend our democracy against Trump, the GOP must aim for a brokered convention." That is in this morning's Washington Post. On that and related issues, Newt Gingrich joins us now, former Speaker of the House and a Fox News contributor. Newt, good morning. Good to see you today.
Well, it's good to see you.
You know, basically, when you take a look at this editorial in the Post, they say it's not just on policy issues that they're concerned about Mr. Trump. They say he's a threat to American democracy, that he basically reminds them of strong men throughout history who have used religion and weaknesses in the, sort of in the fabric of the country and exploited them. What do you think about that?
Look, I think the hysteria of the left is going to get worse and worse all summer. The Post is typical of that. They can somehow swallow 2,000 confidential and secret emails by Hillary Clinton. They can swallow $2 billion at the Clinton Foundation. They can swallow all sorts of unanswered problems and conflicts with Hillary because, after all, she's on the left, and therefore she's of the true faith. What's going to get worse, I predict, is when it begins to sink in that Trump is going to be prepared to go into the African-American community, to actually go into neighborhoods that the Democrats think are closed to Republicans. You had somebody the other day on MSNBC said, he shouldn't campaign in Chicago or St. Louis or Cleveland because they've had racially sensitive shootings. Now, the idea that an American candidate for the American presidency has any neighborhood they can't go in will tell you just how far the left has gone towards thinking it owns the country. The Washington Post is part of the left, unfortunately. That editorial represents accurately the hysteria of the left.
Do you expect that he will do that he will go into those neighborhoods and speak?
I would hope so. I think Donald Trump actually has a slogan, "Make America Great Again," which could apply to every American. I think Trump in Southside Chicago saying that making America great again means your children shouldn't be killed, your schools should actually work, there should be jobs in your neighborhood. I think that would shatter the fabric of the Democratic Party and expose the degree to which they've exploited poor people without actually helping them. I think it would be very healthy for America, and I think it would lead to Madison, Wisconsin scale opposition by the left. Remember, Scott Walker had some 80 threats. His wife got a note saying, "You may become a widow if Governor Walker continues with his reforms." I mean, the left, when it loses, goes hysterical, and I think they have a real likelihood of losing this year.
Oh. All right, let's listen to this quote from an expert on the rules of delegates. Take a listen.
Well, it's getting to be increasingly hard to stop him at this point. I mean, I think Republican leaders really have two strategies at this point. One is to deny him the actual nomination by having a contested convention. And then if that happens and they do try to deny him the nomination at the convention, you have to convince the American people that it's okay that the party makes a decision at the convention that's not consistent with whoever got the most votes.
Yeah, I mean, the party says you must get to 1237, that's a hard and fast rule. And if you don't get there, it opens up the process. And I think a lot of people would be curious to know that the delegates who then, if you get through the first round ballot and you don't get to 1237, then the delegates, the people who are standing on the floor at those conventions, which we've all seen for years and years covering these races, that they actually get to cast their votes. But those people haven't all been chosen yet in the states across the country. They're in the process of choosing them between now and the convention, which leaves open a lot of doors for party politics at the state level to engineer those people to go a certain way, does it not?
Look, here's what the old line Washington establishment doesn't get. There are only two candidates who could be nominated for president. One is Ted Cruz, the other is Donald Trump. The best way for Cruz to try to be the nominee, and he understands this and he's working very hard at it, is to beat Donald Trump in the primaries. Let's say that Cruz can win enough primaries that Trump comes short. That doesn't mean there's going to be a third candidate. So the establishment gets to choose. Do you want Ted Cruz, who's an outsider, or do you want Donald Trump, who's an outsider? But there's not going to be a third candidate. John Kasich could play a role, but Kasich's not going to win enough primaries to become the nominee. So the fact becomes, one of these two outsiders is going to be nominated, and Anybody who tried to sneak in at the last minute without competing would find both Trump and Cruz opposed to them, and they would simply be crushed. I mean, these two guys are going to have over 80% of the delegates between them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in terms of the ground game, Cruz's ground game has been very good so far. And word is that he is working very hard for that scenario. If delegates need to be wooed, you know, to the convention floor, the Cruz campaign is setting up orchestrating a way to do that effectively. Do you think Donald Trump is on top of that game as well?
I think if they come out of the last primary in early June and they have 6 weeks to the convention, every undecided delegate will get a chance to ride in the Trump helicopter. They'll get a chance to ride in the Trump airplane. They'll get to visit the Trump winery. Look, Donald Trump is a great salesman. He understands what he's doing. He wrote The Art of the Deal, and he's a good negotiator. Ted Cruz is very, very smart. You'd have a very healthy competition between these two guys. But my point to the Washington establishment is they don't have a third choice. There's not going to be some magic done with delegates. Those delegates are Americans who know what they're doing. They're going to be wired together by social media. They're going to have a chance. I mean, can you imagine if you were the last delegate who was the deciding vote? You know, Donald would call and say, how'd you like to come down to Florida for a couple of days with me? Cruz would call and say, have you ever seen all of Texas? I mean, you would be wined and dined like nobody in American politics.
And they say there are no more brokered conventions, right? You know, in terms of the final process here, if it gets sort of, you know, what do you think of the Eric Ericksons of the world right now who are meeting in Washington, and John Boehner, who's throwing out Paul Ryan's name in this process? What's your message to them?
Have fun. It's an amusing parlor game. It has no meaning in the real world, but if it makes you feel better. I draw a distinction. I mean, John Boehner is genuinely fond of Paul Ryan, as I am, and Boehner, frankly, I think would probably rather see somebody other than Cruz, who caused him a lot of pain, or Trump, who I'm sure he sees as a very strange outsider from a traditional political standpoint. I'm not sympathetic at all to the Eric Ericksons of the world. If they want to form the let's elect Hillary Clinton club, fine, but they ought to be honest about it. Any effort to help anybody but the Republican nominee helps Hillary Clinton. And if you think giving Hillary Clinton the Supreme Court, having Hillary Clinton run our foreign policy, having Hillary Clinton support the unions to continue ruining our children in schools, if you think that's acceptable, then do it. But Eric Erickson's not playing a risk-free game. It's not like there's some pure middle way. If he does not support the Republican nominee, he is functionally supporting Hillary Clinton in the general election.
Thank you. Always good to talk to you, sir. We'll see you next time.
So, Mr. Speaker, while we have you here, who wears it better?
Well, I was looking over here at the monitor. For people back home who want to know what I'm doing, I'm looking at this monitor off to one side. My granddaughter Maggie gave me this tie, so I'm biased. I don't want to hurt your feelings, Bill.
We'll give that.
I think, in all honesty, the lady next to you has an elegant green of just the right shade. Sorry, I have to tell you this, but I'm with her, and I think she looks perfectly Irish for today.
Hands down.
And I'll go with Maggie's tie. I like it the best. Thank you, Newt.
All right.
Good to see you, sir.